voice every day to the world and to your heart. Open up your eyes and let your spirit start. Say yes to the dreams you hold inside. Let your soul be your guide.
In today's complex mortgage world, finding the right direction can be challenging. That's where Lighthouse Advisors comes in. With over 25 years of experience, we provide fractional leadership and executive oversight, guiding companies through transitions, growth, and innovation. From IMBs to brokers to credit unions to tech firms, our team of seasoned professionals is here to shine a light on solutions, ensuring your business thrives in every environment. At Lighthouse Advisors, we don't just guide, we empower. Together, let's create a ripple of success across the industry. Email us today at laura@lighthouseadvisors.com. Go. Thank you for joining us today for another episode of Wednesday Wisdom. Today, we are joined by the incredible Dawn Cooper. She is the Director of Strategic Growth at Evertree Insurance. Dawn, thank you so much for being with us today. And we'd like to kick it off with, please share with us, what is one of the best pieces of advice that you have ever received, and how did it influence your life?
Well, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I would say the best piece of advice that I'd ever gotten was from a previous manager of mine. And when he first gave me this advice, it was a little bit annoying. But when I thought about it, it actually made a huge impact. And his advice was, don't ever come to me with a problem unless you've thought of a solution. And, in saying that, he didn't mean that they were going to use my solution, right? But what he really wanted, and I've used this many times in my career since then, is it really makes you think about what is the problem. You're not just complaining about not liking the way things are going. It's really, what's the root of this problem and what are some ideas to help solve it? And even if your ideas aren't used, you've thought through it. So when the actual solution comes, you're more prepared to accept whatever that decision is. So I use this in my career daily.
It's so valuable, right? And you hear it so often, but yet it's, I always say to people, it's not necessarily what I'm asking. It's having you go through the thought process of going through it to be able to come to a conclusion. And to your point, it doesn't have to be the final conclusion. It doesn't have to be the answer, but you have to go through the process of thinking it through, and then you can continue to move forward, right? So 100%. I love that. And it applies to everything. It applies to our personal lives with our family. It applies to our professional lives. So that is great advice and something we all should carry into our lives on a daily basis. That's
100%.
Love it. All right. So I want to keep the conversation going in leadership, right? So you just said that piece of advice came from a prior manager, and leadership is so valuable, right? And people think leadership is a title or leadership is reaching a certain level, and we all know it's not, right? Because leadership, again, affects every component of our lives. And I'd love to hear from you. What do you think one of the most important traits of being a leader is?
So for me, it would be someone that has a coaching mentality. And, being a manager or an executive leader, it's not just checking a box and making sure people are, doing the tasks that are there. It's really helping others to, what are your goals? How can we get you there? Let's lift you. As I rise, you rise too. And I think part of that is being empathetic. Part of that is listening, right? And part of that is understanding that there's room for everyone at the top. And I think for a long time, there was this mentality that you couldn't rise along with someone else. You were climbing your way to the top. And I think now there's a much more group mentality in leadership. 2 heads are better than one, or 10 heads or whatever. But I think to have that coaching mentality and really be a listener and be empathetic to what other people's goals are is important.
I love that. And you made me think of a story that one time I was sitting in an airport going to San Diego for a conference, right, a couple years ago. And I'm sitting next to this young gentleman, and I don't know, somehow I turned to him and made some comment about something like, "Oh, why are you going to San Diego? Like, are you going for business or pleasure?"
Yeah.
Right. And he turned to me and he's like, "This is really exciting because I'm about to start a CEO training program. I just graduated with my doctorate. He had just graduated and he was about to start a CEO training program." And at that time, we like got up and we were about to board, right? And so I said to him, I said, "I'm really curious." And he's like, "What's that?" And I go, "What's the biggest thing they're teaching future CEOs?" I'm like, "I really want to know like what this training program is teaching you." Picking back on exactly what you just said, he said, "It's all about emotional intelligence." He
Mhm.
said the future CEOs of my generation, and he was probably maybe 28, 29 years old. He said, is we know now it's not all about do this because I'm the CEO. It's about making sure everyone is listened to, we understand the uniqueness of each person and how to pull those uniqueness to be able to create a team that is unstoppable and can achieve whatever those goals are. So exactly what you just said, I'm
Yeah.
happy to report they're trying to actually create a generation that now thinks exactly that way, which is a positive direction for all of
Yeah.
business, right?
Yeah.
That's
I love
great.
it.
All
I
right.
love it. Great story. Thank
Yeah,
you.
that's why you always talk to people in an airport. Like
Yeah,
sometimes you can stumble across some great people that you would have never met.
for sure. For
All
sure.
right. So we spoke about leadership. We spoke about advice. Now I want to go into, listen, you're one of those people. I have to give you, you are absolutely, I like to use the word light. That's my whole lighthouse thing, that you are a bright light. You are always someone that is always supporting others and you're always connecting with others and not just superficially. You get very, very connected to people. And that is a beautiful gift, and we're grateful and thankful for that, right? But I know that every day is not sunshines and rainbows, and we all have whatever we're dealing with in our lives. And I'd love to hear from you. I know that you were part of my last book, and I know you've had lots of things going on in your life. I'd love to hear, how do you stay motivated, inspired, focused on achieving these goals, because you're always going forward, you're always focused on the positive, and sometimes you have reasons not to feel positive. So I'd
Yeah.
love to hear, like, what do you do and how do you set up your day, your week, your month, whatever, to be able to stay in that mindset, because you're always pouring into others. And sometimes I wonder, how do you continue to do that when maybe you need to be poured in a big way?
Yeah. I think the first thing is I have this motto, which drives my kids crazy, which is I don't worry about things I don't have control over. And the things I have control over are myself and the way I react to things. And so when I'm faced with challenges, it's not that I ignore those challenges, but I can somewhat compartmentalize those. And I can look for the positives in general. And I like to stay curious about people, about my job, about this industry, about life, and continuing to learn and grow. And so, staying on top of what's going on in the industry, watching new trends, but also I'm a big planner, and it's not like a checkbox planner, but if you set the goals, like you had mentioned, like big, hairy, audacious goals.
Oh, we're getting to that.
Yeah, the goals I set for myself are not just like get this task done or, get a promotion by this day. They're, learn this about the industry, challenge yourself in this way. And so in doing that, I keep moving myself forward, even when, maybe I have a stuck in my personal life or I have a stuck at work. And I try not to dwell on the things that could hold you back. I acknowledge them, I work through them, but it's being realistic about those things and not getting, sunk down in a hole about the bad. It's, this is here, we're going to tackle that, but continue to move forward, continue to be curious, continue to work towards your goal. And you got to trust the process, right? And so sometimes, this stuff's going to work itself out. If you just let it settle for a minute, it's going to work itself out. And so putting too much energy into just that negative or things that could hold you back will hold you back. But kind of dispersing your energy into all the other things that are going on around you too can keep you on track.
So true. And great, great, great advice. And I was thinking of two things as you were speaking. One, Tony Robbins says, the definition of success is making progress. And that progress doesn't have to be, to your point, it doesn't have to be leaps and quantum leaps ahead. Progress can just be little tiny things that you learned or little connections you made. But that progress is success, and it will add up, at time. So that's one.
For sure.
And then the second piece of that, of everything that you said, is that, just yesterday, I was having a conversation with a client, and the client is going through some difficulty of one thing. And I said to them, it's funny. I experienced this exact same thing at the company I was running years ago. I said, but it's funny. All these years later, 6 years later, I don't even remember it. I barely remember the trouble that was happening, because now it really doesn't matter. We got through it. It's in the past. It doesn't matter. When you're going through something, it seems monumental. It seems like you'll never get through it. It seems like the time will never pass, right? Kind of like our industry over the last couple of years, right?
Yes.
It's been challenging and exhausting. And there's people that are just burnt out, that they're like, when is this cycle going to change? And yes, when things last for a long time or longer than we want it to last, it does get exhausting. But 10 years from now, it'll just be a blip of time. And we would have been past it, and the cycle is over, and a new cycle is here. So to your point, you can't get fixated on those things, because you just have to keep making that little incremental progress on what you can control. To your point.
Exactly.
You can't control the interest rates. You can't control, you can't control how many homes are being built at this particular moment. But what you can control is staying close to your past clients and making sure your relationships are strong and providing additional value. And, all of those things we can control. I love that.
Yeah, and I think we talked about that when you were at your previous company and people were complaining how bad business was. And you're like, we're having the best year ever because we're focused on the right things and we're being positive about it and we're changing the narrative on what's happening. And that's really important.
That's exactly right. That's all you can do. And cycles are going to come and go, and things are going to, sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down. What you control, right? And that's the part that you focus in on. And then hopefully you controlling you spreads to the team and spreads to the rest of the industry, and that ripple happens. All right. So now we're going to get to that big, hairy, audacious goal that you mentioned. So I like to call it the moonshot, right? Like, let's go for the moonshot that I'd love to hear. Doesn't have to be necessarily tied to professional. It could be an impact you want to make on the world, something that, you're striving for, that, yes, it's pretty audacious, right? It's out there. It's not an easy thing. I'd love to hear, do you have something in mind that you want to share with us? Because we'd love to, I think we all need to continue to dream. I think we can't be confined to this moment of, this is what I'm looking for. I want us to really put it out to the universe. Let's put it out to the universe that this is what we want. So go ahead, Dawn. I'd love to hear.
So, I just finished my CMB this year. And during the process of doing my CMB, I became a little more aware of just some things in the industry that are lacking, and one of which is affordable housing and
Yeah.
having kids who are in college, getting out of college, and seeing how unaffordable it would be for them to buy a home. It's become really important to me to get involved in either an organization, start a movement to find ways to make housing more affordable for folks, like all
Yeah.
people, not one segment of people, but just seeing it firsthand from a generation coming up, their ability to buy a home is being limited based on home prices and rates and all the things and the economy in general. And so, those are the things we can't control, right? But somehow I want to, and I haven't gotten my whole plan together yet,
That's
but my
okay.
goal,
It's a goal for,
yeah,
yeah, exactly. You
but
don't
my
have
goal
to
is to
have the plan.
get involved or create something or at least start a movement awareness to get people into housing.
I love that. And I know that you'll do that in whatever way and shape that comes out. And thank you for sharing that, because that is such an important mission. And I say it all the time to my kids, that I'm like, your generation really has been faced with so much adversity. Like these kids are not necessarily getting set up for success. There's
Right.
so
Right.
many challenges against them. But here's the good news. I'll tell you something that we just had a conference for MBA New Jersey, and we had this wonderful economist that came out. And I love this woman because she's brilliant, but she tells it in a way that is so unique that you really remember the stories, right? So she shared a story of, well, I'm going to give you the good news about this next generation. And we're like, okay, what's that? She goes, our generation actually cares about our kids. And our generation wants to help our kids. She said,
True.
so what? And I'm going to give everybody out there in the mortgage industry this piece of advice that she shared, because she said, if I'm going to give a piece of advice to all the loan originators and everyone that has the potential to help, she said, the people you want to market to is our generation. She said, because our generation is the wealthiest generation that ever existed because of the amount of equity that we have in our real estate. So she said that if we market to them and explain and show how they can help their children be able to purchase their homes, she's like, that combination will make it so that you're helping in multiple places. And I was like, brilliant.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. So I know that you are going to educate and pull together and inspire and make a change and a difference. And I thank you for sharing that, because I know it's not easy to always share your moonshot, because you're like, well, I don't have all the details worked out yet. That's perfectly fine. It's just great that now it's out there. We've kind of
Yes.
opened up the box and we let the balloons out of it. And now I know it'll start to form. Dawn, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and just your light with all of us. We truly appreciate you, and we want you to continue to shine brightly on everything you do.
Thank you. I appreciate you, Laura.